Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan File. I am a solutions architect with Megaport. And for today's session, I kind of want to do who is Megaport real quick and some of our products, because I know a lot of times we just go straight into demos. But a lot has changed with Megaport and new products. You can see here that we've been getting a lot of G2 awards. So I thought I'd take this time to kind of review some of our products, and then if we have some time at the end, I'll jump into the portal and we'll spin up a port or an MCR or something like that. So just a little bit about who Megaport is. I mean, we've been growing. If you saw this probably a couple of months ago, we were in the 2,500 logo range. We were sitting about 900 data centers. We had about 300 service providers. I mean, we are growing and building to our platform. We're now in 26 countries. This includes Brazil. I mean, we are big time going global, right? So these numbers are going to increase as time goes on because we're putting our foot on the gas and moving forward. With regards to some of our ecosystem, we're in a bunch of different data centers, pushing 120 different data center providers like Foresight and 123net and Switch and Center Square and DRT and you name it, we're probably in that data center where your equipment is. We work with a lot of different enterprises, getting them to the different clouds or interconnecting their data centers together, even if they're in different data centers, like they're in Center Square in Dallas and potentially Equinix in Chicago or something like that. We support more than just AWS, Azure, and Google. We also have IBM, we have Alibaba, we have 8x8, we are on Salesforce, we do WebEx. So obviously these are the top cloud providers that we work with, but we have a marketplace with hundreds, pushing 400 different service providers that connect to our network. We also have an internet exchange in certain regions of the globe, where it's like kind of like a closed MPLS or internet, where you can join into that with other companies that sit on that exchange. Um, this is kind of just a depiction of how we can build a global backbone. Different than MPLS, but somewhat similar at the same time, where you can regionalize services in North America and EMEA and APAC and connect all those seamlessly within minutes, right? So you can see some of our product sets as we can do data center to data center. This is where you're in two different data centers, maybe one in Denver, one in Chicago. Maybe they're different data center operators. As long as we're in those facilities, then you can use Megaport to spin up a virtual cross connect between those two data centers within 60 seconds, right? We can do from your data center to cloud. We can do cloud to cloud. This may be Azure and this may be AWS, right? So we can connect those two so they don't have to hairpin through the data center, which should decrease latency, within these applications talking to each other. Our virtual edge platform, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, allows you to bring in SD-WAN tunnels or potentially IPsec tunnels or some kind of firewalling that sits in here on our virtual platform, so you can push it more towards the edge and more towards the cloud. We have internet. We've had internet for 6, 8 months now, where you can tie, internet to your ports or your MCRs or your MVEs, and allow you to use Megaport as an internet. Since you already have the port, you don't have to wait for those long, 30, 60-day implementation times. All you got to do is build a VXC to the internet and you're ready to go. And something that was new about 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, is our NAT gateway. So if you're using that within AWS or Azure or any of the different clouds, and you're probably seeing those exorbitant charges with regards to NAT gateway, the IP addresses that go along with it, the IP gateways that go along with it, the transfer fees that go along with it. We can help save some money with a Megaport NAT gateway. Um, the way our services are, our products are set up are kind of like two different silos. We have access products, right? Those are the normal ports, MCRs, MVEs, the NAT gateways. So think about this as the way to get into the Megaport infrastructure, right? And then we have our connectivity pieces, and the connectivity pieces are the virtual cross connects that may go to the cloud, are the virtual cross connects that go between two ports to tie two data centers together. Megaport Internet, right? Mega IX is another one. You can build a service key. This is kind of interesting where if for some reason you purchased a company or you have a reason that you need to connect to another company that uses Megaport, but you can't seamlessly connect to those two together because you're in two different accounts or you're on two different company names. One of the companies can provide the service key to the other company, and then that way you can join those networks together. And again, as I talked about our marketplace with over 300 GPUs, the service companies, or like I said, 8x8 or Salesforce, we have different exchanges and different platforms. We have a financial exchange, we have an AI exchange, as well as just a bunch of different partners on our network. Kind of broken out a little different way. If you think about it from right to left, you have your access components that connect to your connectivity components that then connect to the services. Like I said, cloud service providers, IX, the marketplace, different colos. So, you're starting at the left, whether this be, you could also have a off-net circuit that comes to a private data center if you weren't in one of our Megaport enabled data centers. So you might get your favorite carrier, whether that be Windstream or Zayo or Crown Castle or somebody like that, from your private data center into a Megaport enabled data center. You tie it to a port, and from that port, then it gives you access to all the rest of the services within the Megaport platform. Some of the at a glance, if you want to talk to enterprises, Disney, UPS, these are a lot of our different customers, and there's obviously 2,600 more of them that are anywhere from a smaller mid-market to huge corporations, right? The different clouds we support, the different data centers, like I mentioned earlier, Digirreality, Center Square, TierPoint, Global, Switch, and then some of these service providers in the marketplace, and then some of our edge providers. Our edge providers are what sit on top of the MVEs, like Six Winds, Aruba, Aviatrix, Cisco, 8KV in autonomous mode or an SD-WAN mode, or maybe you want the FTDV platform for firewalling. So all these different partners can be compatible with our MVE, and it's growing. We'll be having Rocky come out within the next 2 to 3 months. We're in beta with them now. Peplinks on this platform. So if you don't see a platform specifically here, just reach out to one of us at Megaport and we'll let you know if one, it's an existing platform, or two, it's something that we're working on to provide in the future. Sorry, going the wrong way here. So one of the first ones I kind of talked about this, it's called DCI. It's a promo product we have set up where we basically give you this virtual cross connect for free between the two. So you'll buy a port in the data center. It's going to be 10 gig or 100 gig with the full VXC 10 gig or 100 gig between the new data center and then another port. So essentially you're getting this crossnet for free or at a very low cost. It's a bundled cost and used to compete against our partners wave products. Some of our competitors, you'll have optical one waves, but it's not protected. To have it protected, you have to buy a second one. There's protection within the Megaport network, so every data center has a primary and secondary path out that goes into a metro core, That metro core has 2 to 3 data centers that make up that core. And then from there, it builds the long haul networks across not only the United States, but the whole globe to get to the other side that then also has a pair of protected circuits, a primary and secondary. So, point being in the middle, if one of those legs go down, it's rerouting itself to get to the other side. It's not like a wave where it's just a piece of string that goes from point A to point B. Somebody cuts that string and you got to wait for somebody to go tie it together. So that's our data center interconnect product. Um, this is how our ports connect. You can have a port in one of our data centers. You can bring in an external network, like I talked earlier, maybe an EPL or some kind of wave circuit from your on-prem or private data center. Once you connect to the port here in the Megaport enabled data center, this is now 1,000, not 930. You can connect to the different cloud infrastructures, as well as other data centers, as well as anything in our marketplace. This is the Megaport Cloud Router. This is really built for um, tying clouds together. So let's say that I live in St. Louis, Missouri. We don't have any cloud on-ramps here, but my workloads are in Ashburn, Virginia, and I need Google to talk to Azure, for instance. Well, I could have put a port in neutrality downtown, right? And then I can build those virtual cross connects from in this model here. I can build these virtual cross connects from this port in St. Louis to Google, and I can build another one to Azure. And all my data flow has to flow through the neutrality in St. Louis to build a connection between these two endpoints. Now, these are in Ashburn, remember? So now we're talking about, well, that's probably 20, 30 seconds worth of latency to get the data hairpin through the data center. So as I go through this new model with the cloud router, if these guys are in Ashburn, I can put a virtual cloud router in Ashburn, Virginia, and now my data flow is going between Azure and AWS and Google within the Ashburn area. So now these links are 1 millisecond away or less, and the data is being kept in the Ashburn, Virginia area. Again, I can always tie a VXC back to my port in St. Louis if I need to do so. But this is more meant for cloud to cloud, but you can also bring in other data centers, other other locations, other services into this cloud router. Think about you taking your cloud router out of your data center and just moving it up in the Ashburn, Virginia, and you don't have to buy rack space and power. This is our MVE platform. It's similar to the MCR, except this is a bring your own license model. So as I talked a little earlier about those Palo Altos and those Fortinets and the Cisco different platforms, you rent or spin up a virtual instance. This comes in, two core, 4 core, 8 core. We had 12 core. We're now at 16 core, and a 32 core, right? So depending upon how much throughput you need, depending upon how much CPU you need, depending upon how much RAM you need to run your platform, you choose that in the Megaport portal. You connect an internet breakout to it. So now you have an IP here for not only management, but now you can bring in remote sites or mobile endpoints. So now what this is an action component where maybe you have your remote sites, you're on a Palo Alto SD-WAN, let's say, and you have 40 branches. And instead of putting the Palo Alto into the different clouds, because if I had multiple clouds, I'd have to put a VPC up here for a Palo Alto within Google. I'd have to put one in AWS and I'd have to put one in Azure. So that would be 3 licenses I'd have to burn. Additionally, you're using those internet gateways to get in and out of, and you're going to have multiple tunnels out of your remote site. In this version of with Megaport, you load that Palo Alto here, and you don't have to have any of the Palo Altos in the cloud. So you've just reduced your spend with Palo Alto by only having to provide one license versus three licenses. The other thing is you only have to send a single tunnel up, and then it has access to all the different clouds. Now, if you want redundancy, you would put a second MVE in either in the same metro or a different metro, and then you would have a secondary tunnel going to that MVE for redundancy. But the point of this is you can build your platform on the Megaport virtual edge and not have to have different workloads and all the different clouds to replicate that type of thing. And additionally, it's going to save you costs on your egress fees out of the cloud. As I said, here's the different platforms. You can see our SD-WANs. You can see our router platforms, including Aviatrix, Fortinet, Cisco, and our firewall platforms. This is kind of, if you think about a or a global company that has, multiple locations in different theaters of the world, you can kind of start building a global WAN. So you might have all these ports in these different data centers within the United States, and you want to tie them to a cloud router. And then from there, you're going to get, over to Ashburn, maybe to the cloud. You're going to get to Singapore, Frankfurt, Tokyo. So you're really kind of putting these things together like Lego blocks, where you're snapping all the pieces in within the Megaport portal, building an MCR in Dallas with all your locations in Dallas. Maybe you have a location or a cloud location in Ashburn. Now you have some stuff going on in Amsterdam. So you're just building these in the portal in real time. That takes anywhere from 60 seconds to a few minutes for a cloud router to come up. But these VXCs are being launched and completed in 60 seconds. So different way to look at MPLS networking when you're using layer 2 and layer 3 to get to your data centers and your clouds globally. NAT gateway, I kind of touched on a little earlier. This is a little different where you normally will have your NAT gateway in the different clouds, right? Not only are you going to have to buy IP addresses, you're going to have the NAT gateway. You're going to have an internet gateway to get externally. Well, what we've done is we've used that Megaport virtual edge type of technology and moved that gateway back out on the edge. So now instead of sending all that traffic out the internet at 9 cents plus your NAT gateway transfer fees, which you're paying for twice, you can bring it out your express route or out your direct connect or out your Google interconnect, partner interconnect, right? And bring it back out to the web and get to wherever you need to. I mean, at the end of the day, it just needs to get to the internet. It doesn't mean that it has to go out the cloud service provider's internet. It could come out a Megaport internet. The other thing would be if you're tying cross region, right? So maybe you have Microsoft peering and public peering on AWS, and maybe you have your Oracle in a VNet that is a private instance. So you can use Megaport NAT Gateway to do that transfer between your private infrastructure and your public infrastructure. Kind of the same thing. This is just showing diversity zones where I'm coming out of AWS and Azure. I'm using my NAT gateway to get from my workloads that need to have public facing type of solutions to get out to the internet. So we do have what we call our diversity zones, reds and blues. They're in different chassis. They have different power feeds to them. I mean, obviously the chassis have dual power supplies, but they're connected up to different power panels within the data center. Typically, we have them routed to different UPS banks. So these are different stacks of hardware that we duplicate in each one of our data centers that have this functionality. Megaport Internet, there's a couple ways to do it. Our internet, we always have two different carriers at any one of our internet pops. So we might have, I don't know, NTT and GTT or whoever we get internet from in those different areas. You would talk to one of us and say, who's ISP1, ISP2, and we tie those together and they're these are redundant zones so they can fail over between each other. Now, you can tie your ports, your MCRs or your MVEs to this internet router on the red side, let's say. And if for some reason this red ISP1 goes down, it's going to traverse back over to the second internet router and go ISP2. So you are protected from that standpoint of view. Where you're not really protected is if you have this tied to a single port. Now, you could tie this port, another VXC over to the blue router, or you can put a second port in. So if I kind of look like at the different configurations, let's say I'm worried about the Megaport actual box going down, I could have multiple VXCs, one to the red, one to the blue. That would give me diversity in case there was a hardware failure. Or I could have dual port configuration where I have one going to the red and one going to the blue, which is giving me pretty much complete diversity, because I have a red port and a blue port tied to a red diversity zone and a blue diversity zone actually getting out to the internet. This is where I was talking about our Megaport Virtual Edge. You can see it has two by eight, 4x16, 8x32. Um, The 12 by 48 is still available. We're really pushing our 16 by 64 and our 32 by 128 boxes. Those are on our new super micro platforms, and you can adjust anywhere from 10 megabit, 20 megabits. It says 10 gigabits, but really, with the new routers we have in place, with the new MCRs we have in place, that can be anywhere up to a 40 gig VXC. Mega IX is a little bit different. This think about I know you're going to get to the internet off of what I talked about earlier about Megaport Internet, but this is a little different from the standpoint of you have different customers that participate within, let's call it a closed internet type of scenario. So you can subscribe to this Mega IX, and maybe it has Google and AWS and Netflix and Cloudflare and different customers on here. And basically, you are going to, similar to the internet itself, this is more of a closed internet where you can only participate with the customers in this IX. Now, this is good for when you're trying to do Cloudflare or maybe get to Netflix or something like that. Um, but it's also good for if you don't want to tie directly your network to a different customer that you're trying to work with all the time, that you now have an environment where you can share information directly with those other customers. This here is just kind of a, hey, this is where all of our AWS locations are. And you can see we are connected very heavily globally. The same with Azure. A lot of different locations within Azure, globally. Megaport, for Google Cloud, very connected with Google Cloud globally, as well as Oracle. So these are just different peering locations for IX, but this is just to show you the depth of peering locations that Megaport has with the different cloud service providers. So we have a couple minutes left, but this is kind of the end. I know I went through it really fast. So, please contact your Megaport sales executive or solutions architect or anybody within the Megaport family to go through some of this more in depth. I do just want to take just a few minutes to show our portal. You can see I have an MCR here and I connected an internet, but let's just do something easy, like let's just create a port. And maybe I have my data center, like I said, in St. Louis, and I'm in the H5 and neutrality data center. So I'm in the neutrality data center. I want to select my ports. I want a 10 gig port. Now we do have 100 gig ports also in a lot of different locations. Not in neutrality in St. Louis, but if you were in Chicago Equinix or something like that, or Digital Realty, we have 100 gig ports, pretty much 50% of our network right now. We've been going through adding 100 gig ports as needed and in different areas of the country, but I'm going to choose 10 gig. I'm going to give this name, and you can see our pricing right in the portal. So if I just need this for a short term, I might choose month to month. If I needed it for 12 months, you can see the different price breaks here. I'm going to choose month to month because this is just a demo. In some locations, we can order that cross connect for you. There's a little slider button that says, yes, I want Megaport to order the cross connect. It will add it to your cart. In this scenario, this would be we can still provide the cross connect. We just need to do this on what's called a manual order form. So we can still procure the cross connect for you. It's just a little different way to do it in some of our different markets. I could also have port diversity. So this is where I talked about red zone and blue zone. So if I wanted to build a diverse pair, I might call this port one, and I'll call this Dan P port two. I could also do lag, which means instead of having one 10 gig port, I need a little bit more. So I can have two 10 gig ports and a port lag. I'm not going to do that here. But we also support LACP and lag. You can see that it's just kind of recap of what I'm trying to do. I got my first port's going to be put in the red zone. I have my second port's going to be put in the blue zone. Here's my cost, $600 per port. I'm going to add this port. It's going to put it in my Megaport shopping cart. Now, I haven't ordered anything yet because it's just in my shopping cart. So if you're trying to figure out how much things cost, you could build this out and just to see what things cost. But if I want to actually order it, it's kind of a two-step process. I have to review to order, and then I have to order now. So this takes about 60 seconds to provide the LOA to the Megaport ports, and then you can download those LOA. I can take them to neutrality and say, hey, I need you to get me from my cage over to the Megaport ports, and here's their LOA information. So while they're spinning up, I also want to show you how easy it is to create an MCR. I can put an MCR, let's say in Ashburn. You can see we have 4 different locations. So if I wanted to talk about diversity, I have 3 locations with red zones and 3 locations with blue zones. I could put them both in the same data center, but our recommendation is if you're going to have dual MCRs, maybe you put the core site in the red zone and maybe you put an NTT global in the blue zone. So we're going to connect that. You can see, let me go back here. Um, let's pick Conex. I want to show you here's where we're talking about the different tiers of Megaport cloud routers that we have. 1, 2.5, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100 gig. I'm just going to choose one. Coming soon, I'm in a dev portal. This will be showing up in customers portal where I can add IPsec, but since I'm in my dev portal, I have IPsec available to me. I have my term. I can set my local ASN, and then I can add this Megaport cloud router. And this Megaport cloud router is going to turn up in about a minute or two. So everything in Megaport is very quick. You can see I have my LOAs now as quickly as it took me building MCR. And this is what I would provide to neutrality in St. Louis at 210 North Tucker with my port assignments and the termination point. I really appreciate you guys joining today. Again, my name is Dan Fowler. I'm a solutions architect with Megaport. If there's any questions on any Megaport service or products, please reach out to us and let's talk about what your requirements are and bring you into the Megaport family. Thank you and have a great day.